Hey guys, we're back. I say we're because I'm not alone. Go ahead.
It's me.
It's me. Okay, so we're trying this with the microphone in between us because I'm lazy and did not set up a second microphone. And so anyway, this week, it's been a couple weeks, but we've also taken a pause in terms of trekking through the series with the intention of leaning into it with intentionality and to ask good questions, deep questions, to bring questions that we don't even know we have to light, and to have more of the, you can set your coffee cup down. You don't have to worry about not making sound. I don't want to make a sound. He's talking. Anyway, sorry. Just
Ninja coffee.
Yeah, Ninja coffee. You were like so slow, and like nobody has any idea except now I'm like describing it.
Now you're bringing it.
Yeah,
Now they know.
you're like you slow. Like I was like, I'm gonna time her in my head. I don't know what I'm gonna say after this, but like it took you 10 seconds to put your coffee cup down. Oh, anyway, so like I said, we took a pause to lean into a little bit more with the universal, with the U of house and the acronym. Actually, no, yeah. And so I did not continue the conversation with podcasts, but here we are. And so we're going to actually break this up into 3 for this week. And if you were with us on Sunday, I handed out a sheet of paper, and very, very tech savvy right there. But it's also, if you weren't with us and you are following along, it is actually available on our website as well. How to get there? It's directionchurch.com, but make sure you put the www in front because for some reason sometimes if you don't, it doesn't go through. But I'm not going to take the time to figure that out right now because it works if you put the 3 W's. But on our site under resources, you can find the PDF to know what we're talking about. But we're going to take 3 times this week to lean into the 3 sections of our scattered rule and rhythm, also known as a rule of life. But the 3 areas, communion, community, and commission, we're going to look at those each separately. Today, we're going to lean into communion. But before we get there, I'm going to turn it over to our resident expert in rule of life.
That's not true.
Well, I don't know. You set that coffee cup down. It was like a professional Ninja coffee. Anyway, go ahead.
We kind of wanted to review just what a rule of life is. Our church, for those of you who aren't a part of Direction, but listening, we went through a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And in one of the chapters of it, it hit on this, like the whole chapter was basically about rule of life. And so I'm going to give a basic definition from the book. It says a simple, clear definition of a rule of life is that it is an intentional, conscious plan to keep God at the center of everything we do. And it's not so much rule, I think, can kind of get in the way of thinking about this. Like it's going to be this task that we have to get done or you fail.
We're going to get graded on it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more of this. They use a trellis for vines, like a way that you can keep growing and be set with a foundation who is Christ in everything you're doing, and how we can get really full of schedule and really busy and have all these things and tasks to do where we can easily, I think distraction is one of the biggest ways that we become unaware of what God is doing and who he is and how he is with you. And so this is one way that I think, a major way that rule of life can help combat that. And so that you can grow in the fruit of the Spirit, you can grow in your understanding of experience of him, and that will lead you in a very full and rooted life. And
I was going with another R word, rich.
Rich.
But yeah, rooted. We'll go with
there
that. And I just wanted to read this one part. Like, as we lean into specifically looking at that first one on our sheet together, communion, which is a rhythm that guides us to abide in the love of God. One of the things from when we went through the Church as Movement book, which is where this is kind of adopted from, by the way. But he encourages us, and so I want to pass on that encouragement to you, that as you develop a rule and rhythm of life or whatnot, don't try to start too many practices at once. That can you can, I don't know, maybe you're like Emily over here and gets excited about new things, and you're just like wanting to do all the things. Well, control your enthusiasm and pour that into like but just trust me. I mean, I don't know. I can empathize with the doing too much at once because you're overly excited, and then you're like, oh, now nothing is as great as it could have been if I just slowly pursued this one at a time. And so that's kind of why the sheet is structured as it is. If you practice it as the sheet that's on our website and that I handed out, if you practice it as written, it's set up to do where you write out your hopes for the year, and then you write out what practice for each of these 3 categories will you do for the quarter. So what is that, 3 months? Quick math, yes. What's one thing you're gonna do over the next 3 months that helps you pursue the hopes that you have in your relationship with Jesus and with other people. Anyway, but like I said on Sunday, if you weren't there, this is new to you, but like if a quarter is still too much, pick it for 6 months or maybe pick it for a year. But the way the page is set up, it's to give us the opportunity to quarterly analyze and refine this rule of life.
Yeah, I think with that, when you look at something like this, it can be overwhelming and like, I need to do all the things, excitement, like he said. It can also be something where you might be on the other end of it of like, I can do nothing. I have nothing to give. Yeah. And that can be really disheartening coming into this. It could also be like, I need to do the best that I can. So it may not be excitement, but you might be driven more by duty of like, this is what I have to get done. And I'm going to do all these things or else I'm not like Christian enough.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot, and there's other ways to come at it. Like all of us are different. So I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind, and I know personally it's hard for me, and not too long ago, it was a newer-ish practice for me, is when you sit with this, if you haven't already, when you look at it, ask God to reveal to you where would be good for you to implement some habits. And ask the Spirit to guide you in what is enough for where you are, because He knows you better than you know yourself. So what is enough for where you are right now to grow and be encouraged and be challenged, and where is too much? And just trusting that. And I know that's a learning thing too. So, but I encourage you to very mindfully, prayerfully go into this. And also you can seek guidance from your friends and family, especially with direction, with many of us doing this. That's an easy conversation should be to have.
Yeah.
Of what does that look like for you? Saying like, I need help trying to figure this out. So please let us know if you have any more questions. Do you have anything else to say overall of it? We probably won't do this every podcast.
Right. This is the intro of intros.
So this one's going to be longer. But we're going to dive into communion, which is a rhythm that guides us to abide in the love of God.
Yeah. What, you want me to say something about that?
Sure. I can.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. You're full of wisdom. So continue.
Stop it.
Continue, please.
So I think with communion and how we abide in the love of God, abiding can also mean like remaining, connecting. We see scripture of talking about vine and branches and us being connected to Jesus, and out of that, out of being with Him, everything we do and how we process and our heart, soul, mind, and strength, everything that we do to love God comes out of, it's like a cyclical out of His love for us first. He loved us first so we can love.
Yep.
And so abiding is so good, and it's something that we could just make lots of podcasts on. So I'm not going to go much deeper into that. Would love to have more conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Paul himself says, how deep, wide, tall, vast, how many other adjectives he wants to throw in there is the love of God. And so like leaning into communion is abiding in that love that is just indescribable.
Like one thing I thought, I said I wasn't going to go any more into this, but one thing, like when
Can I just point out for a second that I get accused all the time of people. Yeah. Thank you. This is on record right now.
When you know that someone really loves you and you trust that, I don't know about everyone else, but in my experience, that becomes more freeing for me and becomes more life-giving, so that I am doing better in general in all sorts of aspects. in my life.
Yeah.
And so even just from that human experience, and that is messy, like that's not going to be constant. We believe that God's love is deep and wide, and that it is constant. It is unconditional and there for us. And if we are abiding in that, our life will reflect that.
I'm gonna continue that 1 second.
Okay.
You stepped on a landmine that I did not know was there. You just really highlighted a really good example, I think, of the text in 1 John that talks about if you still have. Well, let me go back to your example for a second to set this up really well. You said that when you experience the love from someone, it frees you up. Mm-hmm. Like when you understand that, you experience it, it frees you up to be like just better. And with that, like it reminds me of that text in 1 John that talks about when you're thinking about God or you're interacting with them or you're approaching God and you're excuse me, you're still filled with fear. This is the famous text of then love has not been perfected in you yet. It says, for perfect love casts out fear. And I feel like that could that John's talking specifically about our relationship with God in that context. But I think the illustration you just gave is a perfect illustration of that, because you're not like truly one of the most things that I think that the reason we're so guarded sometimes in relationships is we're fearful. Mm-hmm. It just comes, it comes down to that. And so communion and abiding in this love is like allowing the love to be perfected within us, to understand more of that, and to be freed of the fears that we have.
Yeah. And it's for everyone.
Yes.
Like, ooh, I want to abide right now. I guess I am. And like, I know we're good. Community is next conversation, but like even in just talking about his love for us helps in abiding in it and in letting that sink in more and encouraging one another. And so these do all kind of touch in. We did say that we would, so kind of setting up like, why is this so important? And again, we could talk about that a lot more. We did say we wanted to share some examples because I know that's really hard.
Yeah.
Or can be to think of what kind of things could I, and we've talked about like not being overwhelmed. So what is something like a smaller step, unless God's really leading you into something, and then I would take some advisory, is that the right word to use, from other people?
Sure. Some wisdom, some insight
from those around you.
some guidance.
Some smaller habits to put into what you could do for the next 3 months. And then what was your hope for in the year? And if you don't want to get to the year, that's okay. I think there's some goodness to that. But let's start at the practices for this quarter for communion.
Yeah, and so like in one of the examples, again, I'm going to pull these just from the Church's Movement book. But one of the examples, was this Dan's or JR's? Do you remember?
I don't know.
JR. I think it's JR right there. IJR. Okay, cool. JR's example for communion was that he wrote down.
Wait, JR is a part of the book we're reading.
He's one of the authors.
One of the authors.
JR Woodward and Dan White Jr. are the co-authors of The Church as Movement.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so but anyway, JR wrote down his personal scattered rule and rhythm of life, and the examples he gave for communion was to practice the presence of God daily. So he has two here. So don't think that either of us lied and said just do one. Now I'm going to make you do two. No, this is just his example. He wanted to practice the presence of God daily and to practice Sabbath weekly. That was his takeaway or practice for the quarter, for the year, for communion.
Yeah, Sabbath is a good example. We talked extensively about Sabbath for a whole summer 2 years ago.
2023.
And if you were not a part of that or want to hear more, we would love to talk with you. We're not going to do it here. But Sabbath, putting that into practice, if you have not already, is such a good one for the communion. That might be a hard one.
Yeah.
But it is one you could try through the summer, and you are not alone. I feel like I'm going to say that with all of these. You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Another
There's a song there somewhere.
Like the practicing the presence, I can see that being played out. We've talked about examens before. We've talked about Lectio Divina. We've talked about
even the nature of bells.
Yeah, bells.
The L learning or relearning Jesus.
And this isn't like, so we've been doing as DC, we've been doing Talking Through Bells specifically in our...
From Surprise of the World by Michael Frost.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, context for if you have no idea what we're talking about.
And this is not like, well, now I have to have a bells thing and a scattered rule and rhythm. Yeah. This is both. They can be the same. It's the same. You are this person. Like the same person. Yeah. So don't make a whole bunch of different things. That complicates it. And that puts things into boxes. If your learn is doing a devotional based on a certain book or based on whatever, or like reading through a New Testament book, whatever it may be, if that's part of your abiding with God, your communion, then, and also your learn, have that be the same thing. Put down, I want to every day before I go to bed, before lunch, like put a time with it. That makes it easier to have like a dedicated time. I would say if scripture memory could be one, working on that.
Yeah.
I really encourage, if you are not practicing any kind of regular rhythm of silence or solitude, even if it's just 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever you can do.
That would be a good one to do for a quarter to work your way up. I'm going to start with 1 minute. And
it's not like there's goals of like, you will meet silence goals at 30 minutes. Like that's not, but like where can you be still and not be striving for anything else, but just knowing that God is with you and practicing that. Listening to worship music. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you don't normally do that and want to add that into a specific time, or a good podcast about abiding in God, that could be a good start to this one.
Is that going to be this podcast?
Listen to this podcast every day.
Sorry, I feel like we should turn this into a morning show. I'm joking. Well, yeah, when you said scripture memorization, me and a couple other guys actually are working toward taking up the challenge of memorizing the Sermon on the Mount. That will not be a quarter. That will probably be a year or more. But, I mean, that's something that, just to kind of share, that's something that's on my radar. The longest recorded message or teaching that we have of Jesus is the Sermon on the Mount. And it's such a formational thing. So to abide in that and spend time, again, a couple guys and I just sat down. We're like, hey, are you interested in doing this? And we all said, yeah. So that's something we're going to like, that's cool. So the practice for the quarter might be, it might just be getting in a habit of developing like the set time during the week to devote and dedicate towards memory. Mm-hmm. Then the next quarter might be like working on this part of the Sermon on the Mount for the hope of the year, or the hope of the 2 years would be to have the whole thing memorized. Yeah. So
I would say a couple other examples I thought of was, if you don't pray in your daytime, if your prayers are excluded, these aren't bad, but like before dinner or just before bed, I would include trying to talk with God using your own words, just talking about how you're feeling, thinking, what's going around you. Another thought I had was taking a walk and knowing that God is walking with you.
Yeah.
And noticing the things he's made around you and taking some deep breaths, just breathing in that God has given you life. There's more. Or can you think of any more examples? I don't want to make this much longer. We're getting pretty long.
We gave you examples. If you want to know more, you can reach out and, hey, what's another example here? And Emily's number is, I'm just kidding.
That's for real though. One thing I did think to end this, maybe. Do you have anything else to say?
Nope. Let's do it.
I've seen these videos on Reels on Instagram, old person TikTok.
Wait. Instagram?
The Instagram. And it is about like forming a habit, and the examples they're using is like, if you were to want to start a habit and you were pouring yourself a glass of water from a pitcher and you accidentally spill it onto the table, they would like spill the whole thing on the table, and kind of signifying like how idiotic that would be, of like, oh, well, I messed up and I spilt it on the table a little bit. I might as well just dump the whole thing out and make a greater mess. Like, what's the point? And I think that really is a good example for how sometimes these can be addressed as the task instead of like for the desire of getting closer to God and experience life with him. If you say, let's say, for example, you wanted to do a devotional every day and you missed a few days, then you're like, well, what's the point? I'm never going to make this habit. I'm not going to, like, I'm just not even going to try. Instead of picking it back up or figuring out how do I, like, that way of doing it wasn't working. I still know this is important. Let's figure out another way.
Yeah.
So don't dump out all of the water on the cabinet because this is hard. This is not necessarily going to be easy. Worth it? Yes.
Yeah. That's baby steps. And
Yeah.
Keep at it. That's what we want to encourage you to do so. So anyway, yeah, I think that's a good spot to end. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be back here another day looking into the next one, which is community. And this should be fun. Yeah. Anything else?
Is there outro music?
Nope. We got to get better at that. Anyway, we'll see you next time.